What if I told you that a single phone call could destroy the most powerful faction in WWE history? Picture this: Jacob Fatu, the Samoan werewolf, standing in the shadows of a WWE corridor, his phone pressed to his ear, whispering words that could shatter Solo Sikoa's empire forever. The name he just spoke? Zilla Fatu. And if you think you know where this bloodline civil war is heading, you're about to be shocked. This isn't just another wrestling storyline. This is family betrayal at its most brutal, and what happens next will change WWE forever. I'm about to reveal the backstage drama that has the entire wrestling world buzzing, and trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why this single moment could be the beginning of the end for Solo Sikoa's reign of terror. In this video, we're dissecting the most significant backstage moment from the latest Smackdown, a moment that WWE cameras barely caught but could reshape the entire landscape of professional wrestling. Jacob Fatu didn't just make a phone call, he declared war. And the weapon he's calling in? His cousin Zilla Fatu, a name that's been whispered in wrestling circles for months. This isn't speculation, this is the inside story of how a family dynasty is about to explode and why Solo Sikoa's MFT faction might have just met their match. Stick with me because every detail matters, and by the end, you'll see why this could be the most important storyline WWE has produced in years. To truly understand why Jacob Fatu's call to Zilla represents such a seismic shift, we need to examine the intricate web of betrayal that brought us to this moment. The Bloodline wasn't just a faction, it was WWE's crown jewel, a family empire that dominated Smackdown with an iron fist for over 3 years. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, didn't just hold the Universal Championship, he held the very soul of WWE in his grasp, with Jimmy and Jey Uso as his loyal enforcers and Paul Heyman as his wise counsel. But here's what most fans don't realize: the cracks in this seemingly unbreakable foundation started forming long before Roman's shocking loss at WrestleMania 40. Behind the scenes, Solo Sikoa had been quietly observing, learning, and most importantly, planning. While Roman basked in the glory of his record-breaking championship reign, Solo was studying every weakness, every moment of doubt, every sign that the tribal chief's grip was loosening. The moment Roman lost to Cody Rhodes, Solo didn't just see an opportunity, he saw destiny calling. This wasn't a spontaneous power grab, this was a calculated coup that had been years in the making. Solo's first move was brilliant in its brutality. He exiled Jimmy Uso, the most loyal soldier in Roman's army, sending a clear message that loyalty to the old regime would not be tolerated. Then came the systematic dismantling of everything Roman had built. Paul Heyman, the wise man who had guided Roman through his historic reign, was cast aside like yesterday's news. In his place, Solo brought in fresh blood, Tama Tonga and Tangaloa, seasoned warriors with their own agenda, and most significantly, Jacob Fatu, the Samoan werewolf whose reputation preceded him like a storm cloud. This wasn't just roster shuffling, this was a complete philosophical shift from Roman's calculated dominance to Solo's raw, unforgiving brutality. But Solo made one critical error in his master plan. He underestimated the very weapon he thought he was wielding. Jacob Fatu wasn't just another enforcer to be commanded, he was a force of nature with his own ambitions, his own pride, and most dangerously, his own connections within the Anoa'i family tree. When Solo forced Jacob to relinquish his tag team championship to Tangaloa, he didn't just strip away a title, he stripped away Jacob's dignity, planting the first seed of rebellion in the Samoan werewolf's mind. The transformation from Roman's bloodline to Solo's MFT represents more than just a changing of the guard, it represents a fundamental shift in how power operates within WWE's most important family. Roman ruled through respect and fear in equal measure, but Solo rules through fear alone. And as any student of history will tell you, empires built solely on fear are destined to crumble from within. Jacob's call to Zilla isn't just about evening the odds, it's about restoring honor to a family name that Solo has dragged through the mud in his quest for absolute power. Jacob Fatu's journey from indie darling to WWE superstar reads like a Shakespearean tragedy, complete with triumph, betrayal, and the seeds of revenge. When Jacob made his explosive debut on June 21, 2024, attacking Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton, it wasn't just another surprise return, it was the arrival of wrestling royalty finally claiming his birthright. The Samoan Werewolf had spent years dominating the independent scene, building a reputation as one of the most feared competitors outside of WWE's walls. His impact was immediate and undeniable. At Money in the Bank, teaming with Solo and Tama Tonga to defeat three of WWE's biggest stars, Jacob proved he belonged on the grandest stage. When he and Tama captured the WWE Tag Team Championships from DIY on August 2nd, it seemed like Jacob had found his place in Solo's New World Order. The wrestling world took notice. Here was a performer who combined the raw athleticism of his legendary family with a modern edge that felt fresh and dangerous. But Solo Sikoa's true nature began to reveal itself in the most insidious way possible. On August 23rd, Solo didn't just ask Jacob to relinquish his championship to Tanga Loa. He demanded it, treating Jacob not as a partner but as a subordinate. This moment was crucial because it revealed Solo's fundamental misunderstanding of what made the original Bloodline so powerful. Roman Reigns elevated his family members. Solo sought to diminish them to make himself appear larger. The psychological warfare didn't stop there. Behind closed doors, Solo began referring to Jacob as all gas, no brains to JD McDonough, a newcomer who hadn't earned the right to even speak Jacob's name. When Jacob overheard these comments, something fundamental shifted in his relationship with his cousin. This wasn't just disrespect. This was a deliberate attempt to undermine Jacob's credibility and reduce him to nothing more than muscle for hire. Jacob's victory over LA Knight at WrestleMania 41 for the United States Championship should have been a celebration of his individual excellence. Instead, it became another source of tension with Solo, who saw Jacob's success as a threat to his own authority. The crowd's eruption when Jacob won wasn't just appreciation for a great match, it was recognition that here was a star who could shine independently of Solo's shadow. The breaking point came when Jacob could no longer ignore the pattern of disrespect and manipulation. His attack on Solo during the Money in the Bank ladder match wasn't just a moment of rage, it was a declaration of independence from a toxic relationship that had been poisoning his career. When Jacob cost Solo the briefcase, he wasn't just changing the course of one match, he was rewriting the entire narrative of the Bloodline's future. Solo's revenge at Night of Champions was swift and brutal, but it also revealed his greatest weakness. He needed an army to defeat one man. The fact that Solo required help from JD McDonough, Tonga, and Tanga Loa to overcome Jacob exposed him as a pretender to the throne, someone who could only maintain power through numbers rather than individual excellence. Solo Sikoa's transformation of the Bloodline into MFT, My Family Tree, represents one of the most calculated power grabs in WWE history, but it also reveals the fundamental flaws in his leadership philosophy. Unlike Roman Reigns, who built loyalty through shared success and mutual respect, Solo has constructed his empire on a foundation of fear, intimidation, and the constant threat of replacement. This approach might seem effective in the short term, but it creates an inherently unstable power structure that breeds resentment and rebellion. The recruitment of JD McDonough was Solo's first major strategic error. While McDonough brings cunning and ruthlessness to the faction, his presence also represents everything wrong with Solo's approach to leadership. McDonough isn't family, he's an opportunist who saw a chance to attach himself to power. His loyalty isn't born from blood or respect, it's transactional, which means it can be bought, sold, or transferred to the highest bidder. When Solo allowed McDonough to disrespect Jacob Fatu, he sent a clear message that outsiders could rise above family members in his hierarchy. Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa's return added veteran credibility to Solo's faction, but their presence also highlighted another critical weakness in his strategy. These men have their own agenda, their own history, and their own reasons for being in WWE that have nothing to do with Solo's vision. They're allies of convenience, not true believers in Solo's cause. Their loyalty extends only as far as their personal interests align with Solo's goals. The addition of Tala Tonga completed Solo's army, giving him the numbers advantage he craved, but it also created a bloated faction where individual personalities get lost in the crowd. This is the opposite of what made the original Bloodline so compelling. Each member had a distinct role and personality that contributed to the group's overall dynamic. In MFT, everyone except Solo feels interchangeable, which diminishes the emotional investment fans have in the faction's success or failure. Jacob Fatu's resistance to this new order isn't just personal, it's philosophical. Jacob represents the old way of doing things, where respect was earned through performance and family bonds meant something more than convenient alliances. His parking lot ambush of Solo on July 4th wasn't just revenge, it was a statement that Solo's reign of terror wouldn't go unchallenged. When Jacob left Solo hanging out of a car window, he was symbolically demonstrating that the self-proclaimed tribal chief was vulnerable and that his empire could be toppled. The brutal retaliation that followed, the triple powerbomb through the announce table, revealed Solo's true nature. He doesn't just want to defeat his enemies, he wants to destroy them completely, to make examples of anyone who dares to challenge his authority. This scorched earth approach might intimidate some, but it also galvanizes others to resist even more fiercely. Jimmy Uso's gradual alignment with Jacob represents the beginning of a broader resistance movement within the extended Bloodline family. Jimmy's presence legitimizes Jacob's rebellion and provides a bridge to other potential allies who might be hesitant to stand against Solo alone. This growing resistance threatens the very foundation of Solo's power structure. Zilla Fatu represents more than just potential backup for Jacob. He embodies the next generation of Anoa'i family excellence and the promise of a return to the values that made the Bloodline legendary in the first place. As the son of the late, great Umaga, Zilla carries a legacy that commands respect throughout the wrestling world. His father was a monster in the ring, a performer who combined raw power with surprising agility and an intensity that made him one of WWE's most feared competitors. That genetic legacy flows through Zilla's veins, but he's evolved it for the modern era. At just 25 years old, Zilla has already established himself as a force to be reckoned with on the independent wrestling scene. His work in promotions like Reality of Wrestling and Game Changer Wrestling has showcased a performer who understands both the technical aspects of modern wrestling and the storytelling elements that separate good wrestlers from great ones. When Booker T, a Hall of Famer who knows talent when he sees it, publicly praises Zilla's potential, the wrestling world takes notice. The chemistry between Jacob and Zilla from their independent wrestling collaborations cannot be understated. These aren't just cousins who happen to wrestle, they're performers who understand each other's rhythm, who can anticipate each other's moves, and who share a vision of what the Anoa'i family legacy should represent. Their tag team work on the indie circuit demonstrated a natural synchronicity that money can't buy and training can't fully replicate. But Zilla's potential impact extends far beyond his in-ring abilities. His arrival would represent a philosophical shift in the Bloodline civil war, transforming it from a simple power struggle into a generational conflict about the future direction of the family's wrestling legacy. Solo's MFT represents the old-school approach of ruling through fear and intimidation, while Jacob and Zilla would embody a new vision based on mutual respect, shared excellence, and the understanding that true strength comes from unity rather than domination. The fan reaction to the possibility of Zilla's WWE debut has been electric. Social media explodes with speculation every time his name is mentioned, and signs calling for his arrival appear at WWE events with increasing frequency. This grassroots support isn't manufactured, it's organic enthusiasm from fans who recognize that Zilla represents something special, something that could reinvigorate the Bloodline storyline just when it needs fresh energy most. Zilla's cryptic social media posts, particularly his "see you soon" message following Jacob's debut, have only intensified speculation about his potential arrival. These aren't random comments, they're carefully crafted messages designed to build anticipation and signal his readiness to step onto WWE's biggest stage. The timing of these posts, coinciding with key moments in the Bloodline civil war, suggests a level of coordination that goes beyond coincidence. If Zilla does answer Jacob's call, he won't just be joining a faction, he'll be making a statement about what the Anoa'i family name should represent in the modern era of professional wrestling. Jacob Fatu's call to Zilla Fatu represents far more than a desperate plea for backup. It's a masterclass in strategic warfare that could fundamentally alter the balance of power not just within the Bloodline civil war, but throughout the entire WWE landscape. The timing of this move is particularly brilliant because it comes at a moment when Solo's confidence is at its peak, making him vulnerable to the kind of surprise that could shatter his carefully constructed empire. From a pure numbers perspective, Solo's MFT currently holds a significant advantage with 4 active members compared to Jacob and Jimmy's 2-man resistance. But numbers alone don't tell the complete story. Solo's faction suffers from a critical weakness. Their loyalty is based on convenience rather than conviction. JD McDonough joined because he saw an opportunity for advancement. Tama Tonga and Tango Loa aligned with Solo because it served their immediate interests. None of these men would sacrifice themselves for Solo's vision because they don't truly believe in it. Contrast this with the potential Jacob-Zilla alliance. These men share blood, history, and a genuine commitment to restoring honor to their family name. Their loyalty isn't transactional, it's generational. When Zilla steps through those ropes to stand beside Jacob, he won't just be joining a faction, he'll be continuing a legacy that stretches back decades through the Anoa'i family tree. The psychological impact of Zilla's arrival cannot be overstated. Solo has built his entire persona around being the strongest, most dominant member of the family. But Zilla's presence would force him to confront the reality that he's not the only one with a legitimate claim to leadership. Zilla brings his own accomplishments, his own following, and his own vision for what the family should represent. This creates a crisis of legitimacy for Solo that goes beyond simple in-ring competition. The ripple effects of this alliance could extend far beyond the immediate participants. JUSO, who has remained largely neutral in the Civil War, might be compelled to choose a side if the conflict escalates to include Zilla. Roman Reigns himself might be forced to return and reclaim his throne if the family he once led threatens to tear itself apart completely. Even Paul Heyman could find himself drawn back into the conflict as various factions seek his wisdom and guidance. The potential for a massive multi-man showdown at SummerSlam or Survivor Series becomes increasingly likely with each passing week. Imagine the electricity in the arena when 6 or 8 members of wrestling's most famous family collide in a match that determines not just championships but the very future of the Anoa'i legacy. This isn't just sports entertainment, it's the kind of generational storytelling that creates legends and defines eras. The strategic brilliance of Jacob's move lies in its timing and psychological impact. By reaching out to Zilla at this precise moment, when Solo feels most secure in his power, Jacob is employing a classic military tactic, striking when your enemy least expects it. Solo has been so focused on consolidating his control over his existing faction that he's failed to consider external threats, particularly from family members he assumed would never challenge his authority. But there's another layer to this strategy that makes it even more dangerous for Solo. Zilla's potential arrival doesn't just add another body to Jacob's cause, it legitimizes the rebellion in the eyes of the broader wrestling community and the WWE universe. When fans see Zilla standing beside Jacob, they won't just see 2 wrestlers forming an alliance, they'll see the rightful heirs to the Anoa'i legacy taking their stand against the usurper who has forgotten what the family name truly represents. The domino effect of this alliance could reshape the entire WWE landscape. Other wrestlers who have been victimized by Solo's reign of terror might suddenly find the courage to speak out or take action. Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, all men who have felt Solo's wrath, might see this internal conflict as an opportunity to settle their own scores. The Civil War could expand beyond family boundaries to encompass everyone who has suffered under Solo's brutal leadership style. From a storytelling perspective, Jacob's call to Zilla creates multiple potential narrative paths that could unfold over the coming months. Will Zilla arrive as the conquering hero, immediately evening the odds and forcing Solo into a defensive position? Or will his debut be more subtle, with Zilla initially appearing to support Solo before revealing his true allegiance at a crucial moment? The uncertainty creates the kind of must-see television that drives viewership and generates social media buzz. The business implications are equally significant. The Bloodline storyline has been WWE's most successful and longest-running narrative in recent memory, generating merchandise sales, driving television ratings, and creating moments that transcend wrestling to become mainstream entertainment. Jacob's call to Zilla represents an opportunity to inject fresh energy into this storyline just as it risks becoming stale or predictable. What we've witnessed isn't just another wrestling angle, it's the beginning of a war that will define the future of WWE's most important family dynasty. Jacob Fatu's call to Zilla represents a turning point that transforms a simple power struggle into an epic generational conflict about honor, legacy, and what it truly means to carry the Anoa'i name. Solo Sikoa built his MFT empire on fear and intimidation, believing that raw power alone could sustain his reign as the self-proclaimed tribal chief. But he made one critical error. He forgot that true strength comes not from dominating your family, but from elevating them. Jacob's rebellion isn't just about personal revenge, it's about restoring the values that made the Bloodline legendary in the first place. When Zilla Fatu finally answers that call, and make no mistake, he will witness the beginning of the end for Solo's reign of terror. The question isn't whether Solo can survive this challenge, it's whether he'll have anything left of his empire when the dust settles. This is storytelling at its finest, combining family drama, personal betrayal, and the kind of high-stakes conflict that creates wrestling legends. The July 25th episode of Smackdown could be the night everything changes. SummerSlam 2025 looms on the horizon as the potential battleground where this civil war reaches its climax. And somewhere in the shadows, Roman Reigns watches and waits, knowing that his family's legacy hangs in the balance. What do you think happens next? Will Zilla Fatu make his debut on the next Smackdown, or will WWE save his arrival for a bigger stage like SummerSlam? Can Jacob and his allies really take down Solo's MFT empire, or is this rebellion doomed to fail like so many others? Drop your predictions in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing your theories. If this breakdown got you hyped for what's coming next in the Bloodline saga, smash that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on. We're your source for the deepest dives into WWE's biggest stories, and trust me, this civil war is just getting started. Share this video with your wrestling crew, and let's get the entire WWE universe talking about what could be the most important phone call in wrestling history. Until next time, keep watching Pink Sport, and remember, in the world of the Bloodline, family is everything, but power corrupts even the strongest bonds. The war is coming. The question is, which side will you choose?